start, I know it's a few seconds, but I know we all have family that we want to go see tonight. So let me welcome you, say Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you for joining us here at Legacy Church at First Sutton. And hopefully this is going to be this is my first Christmas service I've ever done. So we have a good little message to go with, and I hope it's one that uplifts you at this time of year where a lot of people just need a time of uplifting, or maybe you've experienced that joy. But before we go any further, let me begin with prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you that we are here to celebrate the birth of your Son. We pray that you will just be with us tonight, Father, as we look towards what this night means, what it means for not just us, but for the world. And so, Father, we just pray that you would be glorified in this service. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
We say that Jesus is the reason for the season. When we say that Christmas is not about the presents, but try selling that to a 7-year-old. I mean, let's just be honest. Nothing can pollute the atmosphere of a Christmas morning like a really bad gift. I mean, you have that sense of anticipation. You've waited all year, and then it's just a big letdown. I come from a long line of bad gift givers, so this has kind of become second nature for me. Christmas of '97, my aunt gave me a watch. Great gift. But when I thanked her for it, all she said was, uh-oh. She explained to me that the watch was for Chris on the other side of the family. When I was 16 years old, my mom gave me a floor lamp. A floor lamp. Like, what 16-year-old boy is walking into his nasty laundry-covered bedroom saying, you know, the lighting in here is just not quite right. But the mother of all bad gifts came to me when I was 8 years old, Christmas 1986, at my grandparents' farm. They were successful farmers and had a long track record of giving awesome gifts. So here we are, Christmas morning, Grandma brings out the best and final gift, the big one. My little 8-year-old heart is just pounding. I mean, this is my Christmas. I rip through the paper, open the top, I look inside, and I'm stunned. You should know, my grandparents were very resourceful. Grandma would can food from their garden. She repurposed milk cartons. You know, she'd save old jeans just for their fabric. So I peered into the box just a second time just to confirm that what I was seeing really was a handmade quilt. Apparently, Grandma had taken some of Grandpa's old jeans and combined that with some recycled kitchen curtains that were fruit-themed. And this quilt was just a marvel. It had bananas and apples and little grape clusters just for a pop of color. A quilt? A stinking quilt? Are you kidding me? What am I going to do with the quilt? I'm 8. But after I had some time to think about it, that's when I cried. That's when I really broke down, you know. I just remember the next day packing up the van and we were leaving. I just felt so let down, and I was just wallowing in my own self-pity the entire trip home. I mean, I was warm, but a funny thing happened as the months and years went by. I started to fall in love with that blanket. It became my bedspread, my traveling blanket, my house blanket, my watching football blanket. I used it so much that it became tattered and worn. The once bright red backing faded to a light pink on one side, fruit and jeans on the other. But I didn't care. Like, I used it every day. And somehow the mother of all bad gifts turned into the best gift I ever got. But when I first peered into that box, I couldn't see the years of joy that blanket would give me. I'd completely undervalued what I'd been given. And today, when I look at that crazy jean and fruit blanket, it reminds me that there's another gift that, quite frankly, I've undervalued. The gift of Jesus. The most undervalued gift in the history of mankind. His hope, his joy, his peace, his love has come to us as a gift. But is it real to me? Am I really experiencing it? Are you really experiencing it? Are we just so caught up in the craziness and distraction of the season that that incredible gift has faded off into the background somewhere? I pray today finds me able to cherish both the unexpected gift of that first Christmas and the promise of Jesus being always with us now, that his hope, love, joy, and peace would be even more clear to me than ever. I pray the same for you. God is with us. Merry Christmas.
All right, so hopefully that gets you thinking a little bit about, tomorrow. It's going to be this high anticipation day as we go forward, as we are going into the Christmas peak. And we always have had that one gift that we always kind of look at, but we got to look at how God gave us his ultimate gift. And that's what we celebrate tonight. So let's stand if you want to. We're going to begin with some music. All right. You all may be seated. So as you can see, if you've driven by the church many times over the last month, we've had the lights on in here, the candle lights. Turned them off for a special purpose, and I put the timer on there outside for a special purpose. So hopefully I can time this right so the effect works. All right. So we were talking about how this has been that peak, that moment where we're working towards everything for the Christmas season. Life gets hectic, and we've come to understand Advent over the last 4 weeks here as this joyous anticipation that the people of Israel had, waiting for Jesus to come. And it seemed like he would never come. It seemed like Christmas would never come. I was just at the bank today, and I was talking with the teller, and she was saying how they were surprised at how quickly the month had just passed by. It was there, and then it seemed like it was just slow. But then this morning they're talking, and they were surprised that this was it. Tomorrow they head off, and then come Thursday they would begin the process of packing up everything that was there. Christmas trees, the poinsettias, everything. Well, that's the thing. We have this anticipated joy of celebrating Christmas. And we've come to understand that the arrival of God with us here is this thing of understanding the hope and the love and the joy and the peace of which it brings. In fact, it comes back to long ago when the prophet Isaiah foretold the birth of the Messiah, which was called Emmanuel, which we'll see what Emmanuel means. Now, Matthew put it this way: all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. Now that's Isaiah. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Any name that you see in the Bible, anything like Samuel or Daniel or something, that E-L at the end is God. It's like the ancient Hebrew part of God. So anything you see, Michael, there's always a God in there, like God with us. God, gives. God blesses. God heard my cry, Ishmael. So, as we go into this, let's trace back a little bit. So, for those of you that are visiting us tonight, we're going to trace back what we've done. So, we looked at first how God with us brings hope. Now, the book of Luke began with this story. We always think of Luke chapter 2. In those days there went out a decree by Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And we think that's where the Christmas story begins, and it's not really there. You see, God while he foretold the coming of Messiah, well, he told the forecoming of Jesus, his son. He also told the forecoming of a prophet that would give way to the Messiah. And that was John the Baptist. And so for his family, there was this deep sorrow that was going on. You see, John's father and mother were up there in age, Zechariah and Elizabeth. They were much older. Elizabeth was a cousin of Mary. Now, we don't know if she was a direct cousin or a second cousin or a third cousin. But we know that Mary was a cousin of Elizabeth because we read that story. And Elizabeth had wanted to have a child with Zechariah, but they were both so up there in age that it was impossible. And suddenly, as Zechariah is going to do his priestly duties, Gabriel, the angel, visits him and says, guess what? Elizabeth's going to be pregnant. Rejoice. And Zechariah, this prophet, well, not prophet, but this priest is sitting there and kind of laughs at it. And, well, the angel says, because you didn't believe, you're not going to speak until this child is born. So, as he comes out, and they realize, like all the people realize that are gathered there, that he's seen this vision, this something is wonderful. And then all of a sudden, they find out that Elizabeth is pregnant, and Elizabeth hides herself for 5 months because she's sitting there, probably in her late 50s or maybe early 60s, and she's like got this belly bump growing, and she doesn't know what to do. But the town comes and they celebrate this hope. There was this hope that was there. They come and they celebrate it. And we see their hope had gone away at this one point. They kind of just lived with this fact that they would never have children. And that's the one thing about hope. Hope can be there. It can be fleeting. It can be a little seed. It can be like a river that just starts off as a trickle and bursts into this mighty, raging river. But hope can also die. And for Zechariah and Elizabeth, their hope had pretty much all but died. And then all of a sudden, God gave them this bright new hope, this shiningness. Collectively, we can all be thankful that tonight we celebrate the birth of a child, God's Son. And for many, the daily gifts and blessings are bigger acts of guidance, provision, and protection. I want to show you, this is what I want us to have for our prayer today. This is my prayer for all of us tonight. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope with the power of the Holy Spirit. Right there we have all the points of Advent, right there that Paul wrote in that verse. The next point we saw is God with us brings love. Now, Joseph and Mary, they have this beautiful love story. They have this beautiful love story. Here we are, this young girl, and she's betrothed. We know at the time this was like a protection for the daughters, and there's like all this stuff going on. Like Rome is just this oppressive power. But overall, Joseph is betrothed to Mary. This beautiful love story is breaking out as they're betrothed. And in Israel at that time, engagement for a year still meant you were married. The only thing was, as I saw in the movie last night, was the only thing that they didn't have in their relationship was what brings children. So, all of a sudden, when she is found with child, Joseph, who is this very righteous man, I mean, there was nothing anybody could ever bring up against him. Like, if you were going to court, basically, and Joseph was your witness, people were going to believe Joseph because he was, really up there. He had a great reputation. And what ended up happening was this child comes in and he knows that this is gonna ruin his reputation. He knows that this is going to put Mary's life in danger. And so he thinks to divorce her quietly. And Mary, we've got to wonder what was going on Mary. Mary goes to her cousin Elizabeth, and she sees that her cousin Elizabeth, who's not supposed to be pregnant, is pregnant, and she realizes God is there, and she realizes God is going to take care of her. But there's all this animosity, this feeling, where is all this? So Joseph, in his love for her, decides he's going to divorce her quietly, and what ends up happening is the angel, Gabriel, once more comes to him and says, fear not, because this is what I'm going to do. This is what it is. That child is there. She is innocent of anything you think that she's done. This child is in her from God. She's got to bear the Savior, the Messiah that you have been waiting for. And what ends up happening is Joseph goes, and he knows his reputation is going to be ruined. He knows that Mary's reputation is ruined. But because he's seen this, because he's heard this, he does this. He takes her. He loves her. He takes Jesus as his own, gives him his name, and raises him as his own. The thing is that this is all a miraculous thing. In the pain, in everything, Joseph sees the miraculous event. And this is what John wrote about it. So we have come to know and to believe the love that God has for us. God is love. And whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. We love because he first loved us. You see, God's love is transformative. It's miraculous. For Joseph, he's sitting there and he saw this situation as something that was going to ruin his reputation. But he realized, too, that God loved him so much, he was going to trust God. See, you can kind of think of it in this way, like Joseph at first was kind of like the Grinch, like he kind of didn't want to celebrate Christmas. Remember the Grinch? The Grinch takes all of Whoville's presents and brings them up on Mount Crumpet, and he's going to destroy them, and then all of a sudden he hears the Who singing. What does he do? It tells us that the story that Dr. Seuss tells us is that his heart grew 3 sizes that day. Well, for Joseph, his hope, his faith, his love, his joy for God and Mary grew 3 sizes. He knew that this was going to be his Savior. And you got to think about that humbleness for that man to realize that he was going to have to raise the Son of God. That the very person now that was going to take his trade, he was going to be showing him how to create tables. Because Joseph was a carpenter. And you got to wonder what went on in his head, thinking, why do I have to show him this when he's already created everything we are in? But that was the faith. That was the love that Joseph had. The next thing we see is that God with us brings joy. Now, we go back to Elizabeth and Zechariah and realize that for them, in this story that they are sharing, they have this child that shouldn't be there. This child is theirs. This child is like John versus Jesus. Jesus was miraculously conceived of God, the Holy Spirit. But John was Zechariah's and Elizabeth's. And for them, that should have not been anything, but yet it gave them so much joy that this miraculous miracle was happening in their lives. See, for Elizabeth, she was living in all the shame because at the time it was a thing to have children, to let that child bear the name. If it was a son, it carried the name, the traditions, and everything on. Even Zechariah did not believe this. But then we come to understand that this joy was not just theirs. This joy was the town's. The scriptures tell us that not only did Elizabeth and Zechariah rejoice at the birth of John, but the whole town came in. This became like a major news event. What we come to understand is that this kind of joy that they had was an inexpressible joy, kind of like what we sang, joy, unspeakable joy. Peter describes it as this. He talks about it. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. For you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls. See, for them, they were part of this trip with Joseph and Mary. And even so, John knew this. Like, I love the scriptures when it talks about Jesus beginning his ministry. And John sits there, and Jesus comes to him to be baptized. And John knew from even inside his mother's womb who Jesus was. And he says, I can't even tie your sandals. Why are you coming to me? And Jesus says, let's do this. This is how my Father deems it. Let's do this. And they do this. And then John, as Jesus' ministry begins and as Jesus becomes more... Now, at the time, John was very famous. He was out in the desert. People were traveling to see him and hear him. And then all of a sudden, people start going to Jesus. And John's own disciples, the people that he was training to minister, he sent them to Jesus. And he said, I must become less, he must become greater. That is the joy that he had. The joy that we have is rooted in our Savior, who came and lived and died and yet lives again, and who will return one day. What we're trying to work out, what we're trying to celebrate. This joy is that Jesus said, no one will take away. This is how we put it. So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. Christmas is a season characterized by joy. Jesus has come. Let's look for and choose joy, no matter what. No matter what. No matter what life is throwing at us, let us live with joy. The next point was God brings us peace. Now, we think about that time in Bethlehem. We think about this pastoral scene. We think about, the babe there in the manger. We think of the father, Joseph looking over Mary who's just giving birth. But the thing is, the truth is, in a time where there's supposed to be this peace, we got to understand, Rome had called the census. Joseph had to travel 100 miles from Nazareth to Bethlehem. And he had to do it, bringing with him his pregnant wife. And so they get there, because they're in Bethlehem, there's no room. You hear the story of a little town of Bethlehem. There's no room in the inn. And so the only place that Jesus can be born is in this stable. And in this stable, Mary gives birth to the Savior. And yet, we think about that as the birth of the Prince of Peace. And it begins with the shepherds, because now the shepherds, these lowly people, these people that just lived this life that the religious leaders of the time had talked down about, where they had said that, there's no good with the shepherds. The shepherds couldn't even go into the temple and worship because they were unceremonial clean, because of the rules that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all those in religious leadership put on them. And the truth is that in their history, in the tradition of the people of Jewish faith, they looked at their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All three of them were shepherds. David, who was their greatest king, was the shepherd boy. And said, they badmouthed it. They turned it into this thing where, shepherds. So these guys were in their field. They've probably been chasing away wolves and bears and lions and everything, keeping the flock safe. And suddenly, boom! This glorious light just hits out. And they're afraid, and the angel is sitting there. Again, the angels all through the Christmas story are like, fear not. Fear not. For behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which is going to be for all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. You will find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes and laying in a manger. And then it says that suddenly there was with the angel a great multitude of the heavenly hosts, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace on whom his favor falls. And suddenly the shepherds are sitting there and they're like, let's go see what this thing is that we've been told. And they go and they see the child and they fall down and worship the child, and they go away joyously. Because now they feel that this Prince of Peace has opened this door for them so that they can freely worship. What ends up happening is so much. So the angel was the messenger of peace. Here's all those. But this is what we understand. The Apostle Paul tells us in the Scriptures that we need to understand that through all of this completeness and wholeness and everything that peace is, for a lot of people, we get excited, we get worried. But this is what Paul wrote to us. Do not be anxious about anything, but everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. You see, this is what it is. This is what we need to understand. We need to understand that, in the absence of war and hatred, we have peace. We won't often wonder why it is in this society today. We look at the news and we see all that's going on. We see the tragedies in Indonesia. We see the wars in the Middle East. And we wonder, where's the peace that God brings? But the peace that God brings surpasses all our understanding. It's that knowledge that God is with us, that no matter what we're going through, God is walking with us. Jesus was that peace. Finally, we see that God with us is Jesus. We see that God with us is Jesus. He brings us all to the center. See, Luke's description is so understated, yet so definite. The Messiah came in the world in humble ways. He was human, he was an infant, he was poor, he was vulnerable, and physically dependent on two people, a young teenage girl and a carpenter, to take care of all his needs. His birth could have been at first very quiet, personal, but then all of a sudden, lowly outcast, and eventually the lost would come. They celebrate this birth of this Savior. It was unexpected. And still in the middle of it all is Jesus. Throughout the whole story is Emmanuel, our God with us. Jesus is the fulfillment of all hope. He is the embodiment of love. He is the source of joy. He is our peace in Jesus' life. We find out that He is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end. He is this figure that we have waited for throughout all the Advent season. He is the one that we wait for to receive His hope, His love, His joy, and peace. And ultimately gives up His life so that we can be with Him Paul ends up capturing it in this way. Bolded. These are all points of Advent is. Therefore, since we have been made right in God's sight by faith, we have peace with God because of what Jesus Christ, our Lord, has done for us. Because of our faith, Christ has brought us into this place of undeserved privilege, where we now stand and we are confidently and joyfully look forward to sharing God's glory. We can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confidence, hope in salvation. And this hope will not lead to disappointment. And we know how dearly God loves us because He has given us the Holy Spirit to fill our hearts with His love. So tonight, we sit here and we celebrate this birth, this joy, this hope, this love, this peace, this birth of a little baby. So, we're going to do something. I'm going to show you what it was kind of like before that baby came into being here. You see, we often think of it in this way, that God sat there and gave us this love, this understanding. You see, right now it's dark here, except for little faint traces of light. It's dark, and that's what the world was like before Jesus came. But then on that night, 2,000 years ago, the light came in to being. And we see this light. And this light came not to be by itself. This light came so that it could share itself. This light came so that it would pass the light on, pass the hope, pass the peace and the joy and the love. What we see now is this love just keeps multiplying. We see that this love is warm. This love is a little bit, but just from that little spark, it starts to rage. It starts to grow. We see how it starts to even give off more and more. Now, think of it in this way. This is how God asked us. Hold your candles up. Look at now. We have light in here. We see this, and this is what Jesus has done. He has brought a light into the darkness. He has brought that hope and His love and His peace and His joy. And that's what we celebrate tonight. And that's what we celebrate tomorrow. Let us all sing the first verse of Silent Night right now. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round your virgin mother and child. Oh, the infant so So now, here we are at the end, and I want to bring back those words of the angel to the shepherds. You shall find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace on whom he finds favor. Let us close with prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this night that we celebrate. We thank you that you have cracked the darkness and brought the light of Christ to us. And Father, we celebrate that now, and we thank you for it. We thank you that we can just have this joy and feel your love, your peace, and the hope that your Son brought us. And Father, we just ask that as we leave now, as we go, as we just have fellowship, Father, we just ask that you would just be with us, guide us, and love us. And we ask for safety for all those that are going to be traveling. We ask that you just keep everyone safe this holiday. In Jesus' name we pray and ask. Amen.
Amen.
All right. You guys are thank you for coming. And as soon as the light's on,